Okay, so now we're going to begin watercoloring our sunset. So as you can see, I started with a small wash. Basically, what I did was I combined a little bit of this raw sienna and a little bit of this white. You don't need too much of the white. The white is just to kind of cut the fact that this looks like honey mustard into a softer yellow. You can use white, but you can't use white to paint over areas that you've made mistakes in, because then it looks like you're using whiteout everywhere. So whiteout's really only to create pastel colors that you can't normally achieve with the regular watercolor. Like if I wanted to make this a really, really light orange, I could either water it down and put it on my paper, or I could mix it with a little bit of the titanium white and dull it out just a little bit. So I started with just a basic wash. The key is always start with the lighter color of the rainbow when you're painting. So here I'm starting with my yellows, then I'll go in with my oranges, then my reds, my blues, my purples, and my darker colors. You always want to work light to dark. No black should be used to add on to these trees or plants down below. Okay, so always, always, always start with your lightest colors first. It's tempting to want to go in there and fix things with your darker colors, but just stick with it. Realize that watercolor is all about patience, and you need to work slowly. So you can always add on once it's dry, as you just see. So next, what I'm going to do is come in. I want to add a little bit more, so I can either kind of go in little circles and smooth that out, like so, or you can add just a little bit more paint, a little bit of raw sienna and white. The dirtier your paint palette, the better. Like this is really great because you can pick and choose like a little bit of this with a little bit of white, a little bit of red with a little bit of blue. You can mix your own colors and make some really unique areas and color blends. So here I'm just going to pull this up. It turns to like a periwinkle pink color right below the cloud. So again, this is the very first cloud over in 6A if you want to look at the picture. Okay, so now I'm going to make a little bit of pink. I would recommend making the pink in here. So this is the lighter of the two reds with a little bit of white, and that just makes a soft little pink. Just a little bit on my brush, and then I'm going to come right over the yellow. And I'm going to pull it into this area just a little bit. Get a little bit more water. And then I'm going to come in. I have just a little bit of blue, so this is when that dirty palette's awesome. And that's probably all I need right here, maybe more. A little bit of this, a little bit of pink. I'm going to go right along the edge of my cloud. I'm being careful not to trap any of my pencil here, so you'll see, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go right below that cloud so that I don't get any pencil. I'm going to have to stop here though, just because I'm seeing that there's some more pencil that I'm going to need to erase. You don't want to get any of that trapped in there. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of water and blend the two together. Okay, so now I definitely want to add a little bit more pink. So I'm going to take a little bit more pink, a little white, a little bit of red. Maybe come into my other red a little bit. And it's got a little bit of orange, so I'm going to take a little bit of orange, blend it with a little bit of white. And then I'm going to come around this cloud before it dries. I'm noticing that purple up there is a little bit more bluey. Is that a little bit of blue into my purple? Just a little bit. That looks like a lot. I'm going to spread that everywhere now. Probably need a little bit more. Okay, so moving on. We can always add a little bit more pink to that area eventually with some pastels, which I'll show you in a later demo. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Notice how I spread that out and I blended it into nothing. Don't leave big chunky areas, like if this was all purple right here. Make sure you spread it out so that you have an easier time of blending these areas. So now I'm going to work on my sun. I wouldn't do this right away, but I'm right here on the demo, so I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. So notice that the sun, look at the picture, and again we're in 8F, 8G, and it's white, so I'm going to leave that area alone, but because it's so light, I'm going to have to erase this smudge right here, okay? So I'm going to take one of my BB brushes, and I'm going to take some of my yellow, get it wet. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to kind of revamp these if they're really dried out. And I'm just going to very gently go around that area like so. Okay, now I'm going to add just a little bit more pigment. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush, wipe it off so I have like no paint on my brush. It's very dry. I'm going to add a little bit of orange, just a little bit. And I'm going to go right around the edge. So just like with the Zentangle practice video, I'm going to create just a real gentle bridge. I'm going to move quickly. I don't want this to dry because then it's going to get stuck that way. Using just a little bit of water. I'm going to combine the two and keep them nice and soft. Obviously I need a little bit more orange, that's okay. I'd rather add more later than be late about it and have too much paint and not be able to go back. Keep in mind, you're never going to be able to get the vibrancy of the picture that we are using because it's watercolor. Unless you're using gouache paints like I do with my professional paintings, you're never going to be able to get super vibrant colors with watercolor. That's kind of the nature of watercolor. It's just very translucent. So now, before that dries, I'm just going to soften my edges up right here. I have a little pencil I need to erase, so always keep your kneaded erasers nearby, just in case. Soften this up. And then I'm going to come in with my pinky purples. Add a little bit of orange, maybe even a little bit of raw sienna. Notice how I'm working on both sides, just so it stays even and I have the same pigments used on both sides. Okay, I'm just going to keep bringing over just a little bit of pink, a little bit of raw sienna. into what I have here. I'm going to erase this little line here. And this area turns into straight purple. Whoops. I'm going to go ahead, take my purple, and blend it across. There's just a little bit of pink right below the purple. I'm just going to come through. Then eventually that kind of fades into trees, so I don't really have to worry too much about that. Now, there's some areas that eventually I'll go back and fix. I can add a little bit more orange here, like so, and build up the layers. Make it more vibrant if I want to. If you like the softer touch, it's your painting. Even though we're all painting the same painting, doesn't mean they can't all look very different. Okay, that about does it for this part of the demo. Take baby steps, don't overwhelm yourself, use lots of water, and remember not to use too much paint. You always want to be able to see the texture of the paper underneath.